Hello, good evening. I'm Jason Liosatos. This is my show, Outside the Box, with one of my favourite guests of all time on tonight, Leo Zagami, leozagami.com. Leo, thanks for coming on the show and thanks for being you.
It's always a pleasure to be on your show, Jason, and have a nice chat on all the latest that is happening around the world. And in this case, also what's happening also to me, because the last time you spoke to me, I was in Italy, I was in Rome, and now instead I'm in California. So I had to make a change, and it wasn't really like a change that came out of simply, let's say a vacation necessity. No, it's not a vacation. It's actually having to flee Italy because of a situation which got really heavy for me and unsustainable for my family because of the persecution that we have suffered. So, I mean, Italy now with Matteo Salvini is trying to free itself from the chains of this European Union, and Salvini has been with Trump in the last few days. He has met also with Mike Pompeo, and in the end, I mean, Salvini is probably the only European leader that is trying to emulate Trump in the same way, with the same kind of policies. But the problem is that 50% of his coalition is the Five Star Movement, which instead is siding with George Soros, and they are much more left-wing and inclined to block some of the reforms that Salvini at times puts through. However, the thing that is really disturbing is that my enemy number one, which is Matteo Renzi, who was at the Bilderberg Club, is one of the guys who was actively persecuting me from the moment I started the Peaceful Revolution in 2013. Matteo Renzi is with Obama in Italy. He's going to be now meeting also with George Clooney at the weekend. They're going to have this summit at Clooney's villa on the Lake Como, and they are basically conspiring because there has been a Spygate, as you know, Jason, in Italy. Last month, the Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte had to send away a few people from the intelligence services that were involved in this Spygate scandal. What does that mean? It means that at the time when Matteo Renzi was in charge, and after Gentiloni, who was just a puppet from the Democratic Party that they picked up after the governor Renzi was booted out, it happened that they conspired behind the scenes together with the judiciary system to silence all opponents. And they are, and of course that has been proven now. But at the same time, what they have done was to, with this couple of spies that were involved in this interception game in Italy. One of them was a Freemason, the Occhinieri brothers and sister. What happened was that they were trying to plant within this whole Occhinieri case. They were trying to plant some evidence that Trump, of course, was trying to, in a way, intercept Hillary's emails or work in a legal way towards, his campaign. Something that, of course, didn't happen. Trump, of course, we know, publicly invited Russia to help him out, but it was more of a joke. However, as we know, Hillary Clinton's emails were hacked, because Hillary Clinton had ditched a lot of stuff and had managed to cover up a lot of things by simply putting it on a server that wasn't even a government server, was her own server. And so this situation with this Spygate in Italy is a very complex, but basically involves this Ochinero, which were these two brothers and sisters. It involves the fact that they had intercepted a lot of stuff, and the Italian police had then arrested them. And at that point, amongst that stuff, which was then, of course, given to the Italian authorities, then they wanted to plant some stuff that would be damaging for Donald Trump. I don't know if that's a bit, I know it sounds a little bit confusing, and of course, this whole thing has been unveiled partly by even this mysterious figure, as we know, QAnon. What do you think about QAnon in all this situation of Great Awakening, Jason?
Do you know, Leo, I was just, as you were talking, and I was thinking, you know, if people want to really keep up with what's really going on in the world, I think it'd be your site to go to, you know. I mean, it's incredible. What you covered is really amazing. I'll bet you most people are looking at this thinking, what the hell is he talking about? Because, you know, I think a lot of people who watch my show will know what you're talking about, Leo. But, you know, just a quick thing, Leo. I had David Icke on the show again last week, and I said, David, you know, if an alien came down from another planet and said, tell me what's going on the planet, you know, I'd probably say, well, read David Icke's books, or I'd say, certainly read Hidden Masters. Let me just put Hidden Masters up quickly, your book. Invisible Master, you know. Yeah. And I spoke with Leo at the conference, Hidden Master conference in London, which I would just want to thank you for, Leo. It was a great honor to be there with you. And to be there with I mean, you know, you've got a just to blow your horn a minute, you've got an amazing education on the system that is controlling our world, the Vatican and the Catholic Church, but more than that. I urge all people to get your book. I'm reading it in chunks because it's hard, because it's a lot, very complicated, you know, and to learn all the nuances of what's not only in the physical world but what's on another level as well. And I know I went off the topic here a little, but I just wanted to promote your book there because, you know, it goes into things in great length and depth. And Leo, I want to congratulate you on that book. It's a wonderful work of art. But before you say anything, I just want to finish off on that Obama meeting, you know, with the Clooney's. I mean, what's going on here? Hang on, but you said, just one quick thing, I've got to mention this. You said that Obama might be meeting Renzi to get their story straight. What did you mean by that, Leo?
Yeah, because this is the situation is at present is the following. On one side, you have Trump here in the U.S. meeting Matteo Salvini, and of course, this meeting is a little bit odd because then you have Obama at the same time meeting Renzi in Italy, and having in the coming weekend summit in this bill of George Clooney, that of course is the ideal setup, a little bit like the Bilderberg setups, which are always chosen in places which are easy to control for the security. Clooney's villa is very isolated in the middle of a lake, and of course is the ideal setup. Then he owns also other villas, always in the same place, around in the same area. So that means he can guest a lot of important guests in the proper way. And Clooney has always been, we know his father has been involved with the intelligence service. He has been always a puppet of certain elements in the CIA, which of course are the democratic elements from the Democratic Party. Because when people tend to criticize the US State Department, the CIA, the Pentagon, the NSA, they do a big mistake. We always think that these institutions are you know, they have one sort of ideology and that's it. Instead, you know, even these institutions are divided between Democrats and Republicans, and also these days a division between Democrats and Trumpians, because the Republican Party is a very different party from the time of George Bush or George W. Bush, in which the neocons were basically hand in hand with the Clinton, with everything that was going on. It didn't really change. The policies were always the same. Whatever side you were on, it was always one unilateral scheme, which of course pushed this new world order to become this globalist nightmare that we are living. So we had, of course, this situation with the Spygate, which was built up on the false pretense, false accusations that Donald J. Trump was somehow working with Russia. Now, this conspiracy to portray Donald J. Trump as a Russian agent eventually turned out to be a fiasco, because no real evidence was ever put through. But what happened was that at the same time, there had actually been some foreign governments that had participated in this sabotage towards the newly elected President Donald J. Trump. So it's very sad to see that in Italy at that time there was a government, which of course was the same government that locked me up in 2014. Just at the beginning of 2014, I was arrested and then locked up for 2 weeks in a mental asylum by Matteo Renzi and by the people of the Tavistock Institute, which actually were pretty honest about it and said it as it was to my lawyer, one of my lawyers, because amongst the 3 lawyers that I had to get out of that mess, now one of these lawyers, Francesca Donato, has been actually elected to the European Parliament in the League Party. And other people who have been collaborating with me in the last few years, like in the organization Italians for Trump, like Antonio Maria Rinaldi, have recently been elected in the League. Actually, Rinaldi has been one of the most elected after Matteo Salvini, so that was a great result. But even if I have these friends now that are newly elected at the end of May, I had to leave Italy because I knew that this judiciary system was very corrupt. And aside from this whole intelligence spy war that is going on, which of course is a spy war, there has been basically, the past Italian governments have used the Italian intelligence agencies to sabotage a newly elected president of the United States. And there is the evidence for that. That's why Giuseppe Conte, the last month, has kicked out a few people from the Italian intelligence establishment because they were colluded and they had worked in their capacity to sabotage Trump. That is, here we're talking about a spygate that involves an ex-American president, which is Barack Obama. It involves a former Italian prime minister, which is Matteo Renzi. It involves basically people that should be arrested. If this word was an honest word, we should see these people arrested. And these are the people who persecuted me. So I feel even more touched by this situation personally, because this spygate that is unfolding in Italy with this whole the Occhio Nero, this brothers and sisters who were arrested, they actually had in their computers, amongst the things that, because they were arrested for having intercepted an enormous amount of emails from various people belonging to the Bilderberg, belonging to the Trilateral Commission, belonging to various Italian lodges, and amongst them there was even myself. So I was also intercepted by these people, and that was, of course, something which I've known from people within the Italian intelligence. They said, listen, when they arrested these 2 guys, actually your name surfaced amongst this whole thing that they were being arrested because they were these 2 people were, of course, in charge of a big internet company. They were hacking into the information of people. They were hackers, basically. That's why they were professional hackers, spies and hackers. So in a surprise move last month, Giuseppe Conte, the Prime Minister of Italy, fired the top management of the 3 Italian intelligence agencies, which include both military and civilian intelligence. And this Giulio Occhionero, who was one of the 2 people who was arrested 3 years ago, he said on Twitter that the Partito Democratico was involved, the Democratic Italian Party was involved with the Spygate and the Trump sabotage. Now, this, what does it mean? It means that, of course, now Obama has to go urgently and talk with his friend Matteo Renzi to get things straight, because they might then, they have to in some way they have to get their versions right. And even Papadopoulos, that as we know is the former Trump employee that was involved in this whole Spygate affair, pointed out on this whole thing with various tweets. And so we have a situation in which my enemies are Trump's enemies. Fortunately, I'm not in their territory of the enemy anymore. But if I was there, I could have risked a lot, because on the 5th of June, the judiciary system that actually has been involving, actually there's a specific district attorney that actually was involved in my case, is also involved in the case of this, strangely enough, also in the case of this Spygate. So how is this possible? And wow. The tribunal of Perugia was the tribunal that originally was holding my case. And that's where the whole Spygate is now being discussed. So the Occhio Nero, which, as I said, is a brother and a sister who were in charge of this whole Spygate affair of intercepting people. They were pointing, and also Papadopoulos have pointed out recently that this definitely this meeting is linked to the Spygate scandal. The Spygate scandal. So Matteo Renzi so Matteo Renzi and Obama meet up and discuss what are they discussing here? They are discussing the fact that a good branch of the Italian intelligence system and of the judiciary system was used to persecute people like me, persecute the people who support Italy, and at the end, and at the same time, it was also used to plant evidence that President Trump was involved in Hillary's email scandal, which was completely fake. So the fact that in some way I'm here, I'm very glad to be here, because the Occhio Nero and actually one of this guy, Giulio Occhio Nero, and his sister Francesca Maria claimed that they were actually set up before they were arrested, and that they were. And he actually complained to the prosecutor of the Republic in Perugia, and wrote to the U.S. Congress and the FBI about it, because there are numerous contradictions and suspicious circumstances in this case. And so, as you can imagine, it's very complex, this whole matter, Jason, because it involves people that are very shady from various walks of life, but they are people who definitely... they are not your average person. They are people involved in the intelligence and in the judiciary and in politics. But one thing is clear, that Matteo Renzi persecuted me. He persecuted the people who supported Trump, who tried to not get Matteo Renzi into power. At the time there was, when I was persecuted, still Obama in charge. I would have never come in the United States of America if Obama was still here as president, because it would be suicidal for me. I am here in the United States because I have Donald J. Trump, and I believe that this president understands that a person like me can be a good asset, but also probably in the future will also understand that it's a great thing to have somebody who is on his side, who knows what they're plotting in Europe. Because, as I said, Matteo Renzi and Obama are conspiring, but there is much more behind the scenes. It's not only the recent dinner that they had together. Here there is Obama trying in some way to get with Matteo Renzi their facts straight, and also to, in some way, try to connect with those people probably still in the Polizia Postale, in the Italian institutions, that can avoid giving those documents that will expose further Obama as the guy who actually instigated this whole Spygate against Trump.
Wow.
And so it's like, just to go back from the beginning, so we get people to have a more clear idea of this whole thing. This industrial of espionage, because it's an industry in the end. No? Espionage also has its own industry. At times has the potential to interfere with public affairs, okay? And they were deliberately interfering with the public affairs of the United States after the election of Donald J. Trump, and they did this because they wanted to plant evidence that was damaging to Donald J. Trump. And so that's why the Occhio Nero brothers and sisters were arrested, so then they could pick up all that information, the several years of continued activity of hacking into U.S. information that of course was conducted above any control of the authorities in a period of several years. So then they could plant their own damaging evidence for Trump. However, the public prosecutor, which is Eugenio Albamonte, and the chief prosecutor Giuseppe Pignatone, were employed also with the cooperation of an Italian telecom company that aimed at delivering a Trojan to the computer of the Occhio Nero brothers and sisters. It's a very complicated matter, so that's why I'm explaining it very slowly, because these are like technical things that at times are really, difficult to explain.
It's very important, Leo. Take your time, honestly. Very, very important, because this is a template that we'll be seeing a lot. It's good to talk. Go. Yeah, please.
Okay, when they launched the criminal case that is now named I-Pyramid, connected to this Occhio Nero brothers and sisters, I personally, I was just, I was out of the, I was already in this court case. I already been subject to the persecution of Matteo Renzi, but I knew that there was still somebody in charge there who was still in charge in government in Italy that was not on my side, because let's remember that Matteo Salvini has been in charge for a little over a year now. So it's, it's not that long since he has been in charge of the country. And before him, it was only people that were not elected, that were put there by the Bilderberg and by other organizations. And when eventually Renzi was dethroned, they didn't put somebody from another party. They put somebody always from the Democratic Party, who was this Paolo Gentiloni, who was a member of the elite, an aristocratic, a count, and of course somebody who would just do the dirty work for the Bilderberg Club. So in Italy, we're really hostage for many years of the Bilderberg Club, since Berlusconi was kicked out of power. We had Monti, the government of this guy called Monti, who was himself is a very powerful guy, because Monti's government, Monti is a key figure of the Trilateral Commission and of the Bilderberg Club. So it was, we had the Governo Monti, then we had another guy who was called Letta, and then these people were all left-wing, progressive robots that were installed there by this new world order that, of course, is aiming to make Europe into a socialistic Orwellian nightmare, and then do the same thing with the United States of America. So they can do that only if they manage to sabotage Donald J. Trump. That's the thing, So the moment in which Trump got elected, you see, it was March, around probably May 2016, between March and May 2016 in Italy, there was a lot of contacts between John Podesta and the Illuminati Academy of Pier Giorgio Bassi, the Democratic Party in Italy. So the Clinton Foundation was trying to work because they had their ally there at that time. It was, they were basically still in charge of Italy. And I remember that Pier Giorgio Bassi told one of the founders of Italians for Trump, Conte Alfredo Esposito, who is a known, is a guy quite known in diplomatic circles and so on, and he told him, you don't stand a chance with your candidate, Donald J. Trump. But that was not the case. We won. We won, and Italians for Trump was the first organization outside of the United States of America to endorse Trump not as president-elect, but before getting elected. From 2015 onwards, we created this project that we launched in 2016. Well, we launched it already in 2015, but in 2016 gradually got it unfolded, and of course people were saying, Italians for Trump is just like a ridiculous idea because Trump will never become president. And Italians for Trump instead became the first organization to actually do a great event during the ceremony, the inauguration ceremony on the 20th of January for Donald J. Trump. As we know, the inauguration ceremony is always something very important for the U.S. presidents. So this ceremony was pretty historic, and we celebrated it in Italy with two events. One was done in front of the American Embassy, and the other one in Palazzo Ferraioli. And these events were organized by the organization Italians for Trump and Trampiani d'Italia, which I am the president, because I have at the time I had a political association in Italy, regular, legitimate. It was in Italy, if you want to have a political organization, you have to be registered by law and have all a certain. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved. Now I've closed it down. Of course, that was one of the things that I did before leaving Italy. I had to close down my political association. I had to abandon my position as acting Grand Master of my obedience because I didn't want to have, I wanted to be coherent with the fact that I was being accused and I would probably be condemned because this judiciary system is completely corrupt. And in 2013, when I entered the political game, immediately on the 9th of February, during my political campaign, they had moved this court case. The court case went on for years, and it was based on me basically stating the obvious, that two guys, Antonio Mucciardi, the Sovereign Grand Commander of Disobedience, and this other guy, Nicola Tucci, from the Grande Oriente Italiano di Piazza del Gesù, were simply some deviant forces working with the Vatican, within Freemasonry, and they were irregular Freemason, but that's what they are. I didn't state anything that was, out of the norm. It was simply stating the truth. They didn't want to be exposed. They knew that the judiciary was in their hands. My lawyer, Claudio Monticelli, was basically shocked when he saw the level of corruption that the judge showed in this case, because this judge was basically already with their mind ready to condemn me. I mean, I went and gave my witness in front of the court, and I sit down. The first thing that this judge asked me was not, this or that about your case or what you have wrote in the book, but it was, what do you have? I mean, a judge that instead of asking you the things that they should be asking to a witness, which is basically to debate your position, can't be asked as a first question by a judge, what do you have? What do you have means what they can take from you. You understand, Jason?
Yes. Yeah. Leo, are you there? Hang on. Leo's just frozen. We're getting back. There he is. Hi, Leo. You're back. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I thought you'd been frozen out when you were just talking about the judges. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What can
well,
we take off you? What you know? God, it's fascinating, Leo. You know.
well, I mean, it's a bit. The thing is this: we people like me or people like Alex Jones are not only involved in revealing the truths. We are actively involved in politics.
Yeah.
The difference with a person like David Icke, which I respect very much, is that he has chosen a side of politics that I think is on the wrong side of history.
Okay.
Okay? I think that Corbyn is on the wrong side of history. I don't think that the Conservatives are on the right side of history. I mean, I don't think that Great Britain has anything right in the political establishment. It's completely something that should be rediscussed, because the Labour and the Conservative forces are the forces that don't really reflect today the Brexit ideal. And that's why Nigel Farage is so successful.
Yeah.
Okay. So to actually, you know, I mean, I have people like Chris Everard, who is a very nice guy, English film documentary director and whatever I collaborate with at times. He seems to be, you know, thinking that, you know, criticizing maybe one side and still supporting Corbyn can be the right thing. Corbyn is an anti-Semitic piece of crap. I mean, you can't be so anti-Semitic. Also, there has to be a rediscussion about this whole criticism of Zionism that is online. Of course, you can criticize labor Zionism because it's socialism. There is a lot of elements in Israel which are wrong, basically because the foundation of Israel was made by socialist forces that were anti their own religion. They were basically atheist forces, those forces that were sprang out of Europe after the Illuminati started to promote aggressively socialism, and that's what happened, communism. And these forces, of course, are the same forces that promoted the idea of the kibbutz and that kind of socialist mentality within Israel. But Israel itself has different forces that are fighting now with each other, against each other. And predominantly there is a progressive force that stands with Rothschild, stands with Soros at times, even if Soros is not considering Israel a friend of Israel. He is Jewish and he supports the left wing of, and labor Zionist. So there is a big problem here because, of course, at the same time, Israel is the place that is being crafted and molded to feature in the end time scenario. And we know that from the prophecies, from the revelations, from everything that, from Revelation, of course, from the book of Revelation, we have the Armageddon scenario. But we know also that Israel is the place, of course, that was claimed for thousands of years by the Jews. Okay, now there is also the Arabs in this area, but we also have to understand that personally myself, and I wrote this in my latest book, volume 6.66. If you go and judge and you go in the Middle East, have you ever been in the Middle East, Jason?
No, amazingly, I haven't. No, been in Africa, but no, down further down in South Africa, though. Yeah. Okay,
if you go to the Middle East, if you live with Islamic people, you understand that these people are highly corrupt. You understand that they're highly manipulated, and that they don't have any ethics and morals when it comes to cash. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for certain, elements in the military intelligence of Israel to manipulate the corrupted elements of Islam, because they have always been corrupt. And they don't get it. They simply don't get it. The Muslims have this idea that either you are Muslim or either you are Muslim. You can't, be something else. You are an infidel if you're not a Muslim. The same thing might also stand for the Israelis, of course, the Jews. But the thing is that where they have gone and planted their seeds to grow plants and grow and actually build a society which resembles civilization, is the only civil society in the whole of the Middle East. The rest of the Middle East is a shithole. And go and see it with your own eyes.
Brilliant.
No, I mean, You want to see women oppressed.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
You want to see no freedom of expression. You want to see corruption on every side street. Welcome Islam to your door.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, unfortunately, you know, I know that there is plans to, you know, maybe throw Iran into some kind of war and create some kind of false flags around that. But Iran is a shitty nation in the hands of a bunch of criminal mullahs. The moment they defeated the Shah, of course, we know the CIA intervened and all that, so there's a great responsibility of the United States and all that. But the problem here is that now, in 2019, Iran is a place, no freedom. Women have to go carved. Me and you can't talk in Iran about what we are talking here. So is that Iran is better than the United States? No. I mean, sorry guys, you have to be realistic. You want to promote the Palestinian cause? Palestinians are a bunch of Muslims that are in the hands of the Iranian intelligence service, because that's what they are, you know. Hamas, that's what Hamas is. So Hamas deals with drugs, weapons, through elements that are corrupt in the intelligence services. Of course, then, you know, they play the strategy of tension games between Iran and the United States that is never ending, no? But it's all, as we know, the ultimate is then the proxy wars behind it all, between the Shiite and the Sunnis that are always been there. That's why you have then the Saudi Arabia waging war against Yemen with the Shiite population being persecuted, and then in Iraq, and the Shiite and the Sunnis, and the Shiite and the Sunnis, and the Shiite and the Sunnis. Guys, they're a bunch of barbarian Bedouins. Put it in your head. If you study the Quran and you know the division between Sunnis and Shiites, or you know what is Wahhabi Islam, or you have studied the Ismaili Islam, guys, I'm sorry. I unfortunately find myself today in 2019 that I have to also admit that my initial criticism of Zionism these days needs to be rediscussed, because it's also the civil place in the area. Then
we lost Leo there again, just when he mentioned Zionism. But no, come you're back, Leo. I said, like you said Zionism and you disappeared off the face of the universe. No, but look, it's very brave of you to actually say.
I saw this kind of thing.
But it's very brave of, just while we're getting Leo back, it's very brave of Leo to actually say that.
Very good connection.
Yeah, it's very brave of you to. Oh, you're back there, Leo. Sorry, we missed you. It's very brave of you to actually admit that you're revisiting your beliefs, and this is what we've got to do again and again and then again and again. I see this planet now as someone came in here earlier and they said,
"You hear me? Hello."
Yep, there you are. Yeah. I see this planet now. Someone came in. I had a lovely man on the show today. It was Reverend Julian Klakudia. He's the Prince of. I've written it down here somewhere. Goodness knows, in the Congo, Prince of Bakwanga. You know, and we were talking about the Clintons and the Blairs, Blair and Zuma, and the gang down there who are just literally raping that place to death, and they don't care. And then they're moaning about all the. Migrants coming out of there, which is a feedback loop of what they've done there. It's amazing. Yeah. So when he walked in here today, just one thing, what a lovely man. He walked in and said, "How are you?" And I said, "Well, as well as I can be in this global casino mental asylum." When you're talking, it's lovely to hear you talking about this history, because I'm just sponging it up and thinking, my God, the whole system's barbaric in different degrees in different countries. It's a mental asylum that's gone completely mad. I mean, look at Pompeo. I love his name, Pompeo. Yeah, he looks like Pompeo, right? U.S. Secretary of State. Venezuela, he got caught out. I think you must have heard this. It's all the orchestration by Washington, he said. In short, a criminal plot. And this gentleman was talking this afternoon about that. this system has gone absolutely mad. But it is good to look at the history, like you're talking about. Go on, Leo. Finish what you go. Say what you're saying. If you can zoom back in on that with when you're talking about looking at Zionism and everything like that. Because just a quick thing as well, I want to say to you, Leo. I want to say thanks for being you and well done for all your great study. I remember seeing you on Kelly Cassidy's show so many years ago now, and I thought, wow, listen to this guy's talking the truth and really looking at things. So yeah, you've got a great sense of history. So go on, carry on where you were when you said about re-looking at Zionism and what you thought about it. Go on, 'cause it's very interesting.
I mean, it's for me, the thing is this: I can understand that there is elements in the foundation of Israel from the founder, who was himself a socialist, that are wrong and inherently wrong. And that communism, unfortunately, was founded and probably crafted by the Jesuits, but was then promoted by elements in the Jewish community that were heretic elements to their own faith. I don't know if that makes sense. You have heresy in every religion. The heresy that the Jews had, this heresy, became then the heresy that was portrayed in a way also by the invention of psychiatry. Because it was Sigmund Freud who created something like that, of course, changed the life of millions, but also defined certain things that were not really understood as psychological problems before, and then suddenly there were psychological problems, but maybe the day before they were demonic possession. And so suddenly there was this atheist view of things, and that gave also the possibility of persecuting millions of people thanks to the unjust use of psychiatry. So, and then it gave also the possibility with by creating an institution like the Tavistock Institute, which is something that you have there in England, then you created a way of manipulating social engineering on a much wider scale, not the person-to-person approach of psychanalysts. Then you're basically manipulating the minds of millions. You are creating, of course, something that it's intruding into your reality the moment in which they say you have a sickness because you don't think like us. And that was what happened in 2014 when I got locked up after the Pitchfork Revolution and met with Obama, and who is going to meet with this guy was after me because I had written certain books. I've gone on TV criticizing the Democratic Party, the Italian president back then, who was Giorgio Napolitano, who is still behind the scenes in Italy, and who is the bastard son of the last king of Italy. And that's why he has this elitarian position, but he's also a member of the Communist Party of Italy. People have to understand the Democratic Party in Italy nowadays used to be called PC, Partito Comunista Italiano, communist, and it was sponsored by the Soviet Union. So who is behind all this, Jason? Who is behind all this mess? Who is behind all this chaos that is destroying Europe and is actually people like me, forcing them to flee Europe like they used to do 100 years ago in fascism or other dictatorships came into place and into fruition in Europe? Why does a person like me, Italy, and be
Leo's frozen up again there. Yeah, he's coming back. There he is, Leo. You come back quick there, it's good. It's like you bounce back quick when you get whacked, yeah?
Well, I don't know. See, it never really happened to me before. I have this kind of problems with...
do you know something, Leo? While you've just stopped there, just for a second. Oh God, there's so much to say. I'm purposely not saying much tonight on the show because I love speaking to you, or listening to you too, because it's a great history lesson listening to you as well, you know. And I think what I spoke to with the Reverend Julian Clocudia this afternoon was, we were talking about. He was saying that we've got to be brilliant trackers now, you know, because he's tracking Tony Blair and where he's going, what he's doing, who he's making money with. You know, you're tracking like Obama, Clooney, and what's going on in there.
Tony Blair, he tracks Tony Blair, he ends up becoming a Catholic and becoming loyal to the Pope. You track him, you end up in the same place where everybody else ends up, which is the Vatican. So just to cut the story short, with Tony Blair, he's just a slave and a puppet of the Pope.
Right.
But we exposed him as a Jesuit person even before he converted officially to Catholicism.
Right.
As soon as I came on the scene in 2006, I immediately exposed him as a Jesuit agent. And that's what. And then he demonstrated he wasn't one when he simply converted to Catholicism after he finished to be a prime minister.
Jesus, where do you? I mean, this is a question that people often ask me, but you're probably the right guy to say it if you can. But where does it all tie in? You know, the Jesuits, Zionism, Israel, the Vatican, Russia. The sort of radical Islam. I often wonder and sit and ponder. I think, is it all just one big show? Is there someone like making us all think about it and divide and conquer again? Or do you know who's at the nub of this? Leo's, we lost Leo again. Hang on, Leo. There he is. He'll be back now. Yeah, Leo's the right man to ask about these things because Leo's right in there. He knows, and yeah, there we go, Leo. Yeah, and I also want to say what you said about the they chuck you in a mental asylum. That's hilarious, isn't it? You expose the lunatics in the world that are destroying the planet, and the real lunatics who should be in the mental asylum, and they threw you in a mental asylum. My God, it's unbelievable. But Leo, I just wondered if you could. Leo's going to get. Yeah, I just wondered if you could just cover that little bit. Where's it all tying? The Vatican, Russia, radical Muslim, Zionism. What is going on, Yeah.
It's very confusing. And in the end, a lot of people are playing, games on us to make us look what they are not really. And one of them is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is these days a great guy for Russia, but he's not a great guy for the rest of the world. People elude themselves when they want to marry the Putin cause, because Putin is just doing what he has always done, defending Russian interests. But let's really understand who is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is an ex-KGB leader of the KGB, head of the KGB. He also was involved, as we know, as mayor of St. Petersburg. I started to go in Russia in the middle of the 90s, and actually that's where I initially met him, and during a dinner, there was a dinner in a restaurant. I actually had the opportunity to just cross paths with him the first time in St. Petersburg, and I would cross paths with him again a few years later in 2002 in Moscow. But what happens is this: these people come from communism. They are, when I arrived in Russia at the middle of the 90s, 1996, I think, the first time I went to Russia, I saw that there was a lot of chaos because people were literally shooting themselves in the street. The whole Soviet Union had fallen down, and the ex-KGB had become the Russian mafia, most of them. And there was it was a very precarious situation. People had to queue for,
while I'm waiting for Leo
bottle of
go on, yeah.
Anything.
No, Leo.
People were
Leo, just a quick thing. While you went offline again, then I was just going to slot in there very briefly while Leo's offline, just to say that I was also, not to take you off your train of thought there. Please carry on with what you're saying, but I also was sort of moving towards Putin, and I was praising him quite a bit, a couple of years ago. So I've rethought things too, and it was just that he didn't seem to be bombing and killing people like Washington was, So it's easy to see someone like that, isn't it? To see someone like that as like they're really good when they might not be. They're just not particularly bombing anyone at the moment. He's still enslaved a population of people, and it's still like Mark Passio says, government slavery. End of story for me. But anyway, go on, Leo. Just carry on.
I have very good friends, even in the Russian parliament. I have people I've been knowing for years in Russia, and I've collaborated for cultural projects for a long time with Russia. And as I said, I was able to actually work very closely with certain people, meet various intelligence officers and so on, ask them questions. It's been
fascinating. Yeah.
It was a great opportunity for me to be a friend of Russia and be considered a friend of Russia. Still nowadays I have some very good friends there. But when it comes, like I said even to them directly, it's good for you, for Russia, but it's not necessarily good for me because I'm not a Russian. So the thing is that my own family, the second husband of my great-grandmother was Leo Rabenek, and we had married into a Russian family, basically. They were forced to escape from Russia because of the persecution of communism. And this was a big suffering, and a lot of money was lost on the way, and it wasn't all due to Russia, but also due to the crooks in Barclays Bank that took the money in 1915. Aside from that, you hear me?
Yes. I'm just fascinated. It's great listening to you, honestly. Go on.
Yeah. As I said, I have. Why do I hate so much communism, and why I will never endorse something that is left wing? It's something of a family tale that I have to tell you here. I was 12 years old when I went to visit not far from Lyon in France with my grandmother Felicity Mason, one of our Russian relatives, who was crying because she was not capable of seeing Russia before her death. And she unfortunately died before the Soviet Union ended, so she never saw Russia again. She used to live as many Russian refugees in France. Russian refugees that didn't accept communism, were forced out of Russia, maybe because they were aristocratic or they had links with the royal family, and so on. And in the case of my family, that was the case. So I saw the suffering in the eyes of this person when I was only very young, and I really said, wow, this is a real evil ideology. This poor woman has to die without seeing her own country again. She had to flee her own country because of communism. Well, that was one of the many things. And it was my grandfather, my Sicilian grandfather, who was himself, became after the war a senator for the Monarchic Party and then the Social Democrats. But he had marched with Mussolini 100 years ago when there was the famous march on Rome. And he was...
We just lost Leo again there, but he'll be back any second. Meanwhile, I'll just show this. Leo Zagami, Saturday the 22nd of June, 2019. The whole truth about the New World Order and the Illuminati. This is great. I'm just showing you a poster there, Leo, yeah?
Yeah, in Sacramento,
yeah.
I'm going to have my first event in Northern California, near Sacramento in Antelope. I invite all the people who are interested in following me and, of course, to come over and share this wonderful experience in what is a Veterans of Foreign Wars post. So this is also to support the veterans that have given their lives for the U.S., which is becoming now my new country. My wife, as you know, is American. I am applying to become a U.S. citizen. It's not going to be easy. I'm doing it the regular way. I'm doing it the honest and official way, and that's why it's going to cost me a fortune. But, of course, I am looking very much forward to become a U.S. citizen because it's the only country in the world at the moment which is free of talking still and saying the things I'm talking to you.
Just about.
Unfortunately, Jason, you see, but it's not just about. Here in the US, there is a big difference. Here in the US,
for sure.
The freedom fighters have the weapons.
Yeah.
You don't have weapons in Europe. You have already lost your war.
Right.
That's it. There is no opportunity for you to rebel. Either you get to have a coup within the military, or either the Europeans are screwed, are lost.
Yeah, well, look, a lady was just here from France, Leo. She was just across from France, and she was saying she fled from France. She's just gone back now. But she was saying that you can't even, it's like the Gestapo now, you can't even have conversations in France, and they're coming down on you. They've got those other police that aren't even French and things like this. So yeah, I agree with you, it's rare. But I wondered if it's mostly because the Americans have got guns. What do you think on that issue? I know we got to go soon, but what do you think about that? How are you feeling now?
Well, I feel very good because I went across a few states since I arrived here on the 20th of May. I arrived in Colorado, I went to Utah, I went to Idaho, passed through Oregon, Nevada, and the people who have guns are the people who are going to defend the freedom of this country, and I strongly support them. Wow. And I'm very proud to be with them because this is the resistance to the
New World Order, I know he's going to say, so we'll get him back now to finish that. Yeah. Give your guns up at your peril, everybody. Really, I've said that for years. Honestly, it's you are.
Jason,
yeah, go on. About the guns, about the resistance to the New World Order. You were going to say, weren't you?
No. But I'm saying I was brought up in Europe. I know how it is, the anti-gun mentality.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, when I grew up, I was lucky enough to have my neighbors who were Americans. Okay, I lived in Anticoli, Corrado. I was brought up near Rome in a community of foreigners, and my neighbors were actually Americans, and they, of course, were very much into guns. And they started to explain, this whole thing about guns, and when I was a little kid, I didn't really understand the difference. The difference I understood one day, though. I was in the military. And during my time in the military, I just went one day to, I had a day off, and I went to my parents' villa outside of Rome. They were not there. And suddenly in the morning, there was a couple of people climbing on top of the roof of the house. And of course, I was a military, so I knew how to use a weapon. I started with my gun, and I threatened them. Now, that is illegal in Italy. Or was at least illegal until Matteo Salvini recently they rediscussed the laws. If somebody comes in your house, you have to be able to defend yourself. Okay, so and this the mentality of no, weapons are bad, weapons are bad, weapons are bad. The Americans are all cowboys. They have their weapon because they're all cowboys. Guys, Europe is Europe because we defended it for hundreds of years with weapons. And the Muslims were at the doors every fucking summer in Italy.
Amazing.
So there is people say, "Oh, how nice Italy! All these castles on the hills. They were built to defend themselves from Muslims."
Sorry to laugh. It's brilliant, man. So interesting. It's so interesting.
So I mean, people really need to study history. Need to get this whole, naive thing, weapons, squeamish behavior, because the problem is if you continue like this, that's what is happening. France, no problem. Macron is still in charge, stays in charge. The Yellow Vests didn't have the weapons to do the revolution. That's it. They lost. And the European army will come in and stop any form of civil unrest. And of course, without the weapons, what kind of civil unrest you're going to have? You're going to be like the Palestinians throwing stones? I mean, guys, resistance means resistance. And this is an enemy that has taken military control of the territory. So the only way is to oppose it militarily. And to oppose something militarily, you have to have the militias. Now, America, as you know, has also that possibility. The possibility by law to have military militias. Militias means that they have weapons and they can defend the populations in case there is some kind of insurrection by the Muslims and so on. Yeah. So I tell you one thing. I notice here in the US, the Muslims are much less arrogant. The way they have become in places like the UK and London is unbelievable. They are so arrogant.
So not so arrogant in the States, right?
No, they get a bullet in their head if they're arrogant. Yeah, yeah.
Blimey,
and I think that is the great solution. I think that gives them the right idea. I think that because they're used to their shitty Middle Eastern countries where only the rules of the bullets is the rules that they hear, because that's what they do. They just, even 10 years old is playing with an AK-47 in these shitty countries like Afghanistan. Or in the Middle East, in countries like Egypt or whatever, you always see children with guns. Okay? So then what? They arrive in Europe, and in Europe everybody says, come here, very polite, oh nice, sorry, oh no, we don't use guns, oh yes. Sure, that point what happens? It happens that Pakistani mafia brings in the weapons. The whole of Scandinavia is basically weaponized by the Muslims. They own weapons, illegal weapons. And the same is happening gradually in the rest of Europe, Brussels, in various parts of France. So at one point, they're going to say, we start a jihad against the infidels. And how the hell is the Europeans going to defend themselves if they don't have the weapons? Idiots.
Bloody hell. Oh, God, Leo. It's fascinating, honest to God. We've run out of time already. It's an hour's gone with you. And oh, God. I got to see the guys from UK Column tonight. But do you know some? Oh, by the way, UK Column. Check UK Column out. I got to tell everybody. Of
course, this is my perspective. I see myself as a refugee here in the United States, a refugee from the persecution that I suffered in Europe. I don't think there is a person better than me to understand Europe fully, because I've been traveling across Europe since I was 3 months old. I'm half English, half Italian. I've seen France 1 million times by car going since I was a little child. Went to Brussels, went to Switzerland, went to Spain, went to every single European countries, and saw how in the last 20 years they are ruining methodically the whole show. So stop this before it's too late, Europeans. Wake up to this brainwashing, that you're always, you're always going to get the same brainwashing. Now, my wife is not, she's of course a Republican, she's always been a conservative, but she's not particularly a fan of guns. But when you go, for example, in the evening in certain places, even here in the US, you understand that you have to have a gun.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's not like an option, it's just something that you have to have.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, people that oppose this kind of thing, they can go to their own country. But then what they're going to do, these people who oppose this? The people who oppose guns are the ones who go usually around with bodyguards.
Exactly.
The people who usually live in guarded and with big fence walls and guarded setups. And they are a bunch of hypocrites.
Exactly. So if you're walking around, someone's walking around, I think every woman should have a gun, or have a massive Alsatian dog, or be an absolute karate expert. If I was a woman, I'm walking on, I have a gun. Honestly, I'll tell you something right now, everybody. If I was a woman in this country, right, and I couldn't defend myself with karate or a huge dog, do you know something? I would probably have a gun even in England hidden away, because if someone's going to come and rape me, I'm going to shoot your balls off, and that's the end of it. And so they should be able to.
Yeah, but 3 days ago, the rise in crime and in stabbings in London has reached new heights. Yeah. You have seen the reports, okay? So, I am 49 years old. I have to walk along London. And this happened to me, of being threatened with a knife by a 16-year-old well, I'm gonna fucking shoot you.
Absolutely.
So, and the Londoners who endorse this whole thing because they have a mayor, which of course is Pakistani, and who knows very well that the Pakistani mafia is one of the worst mafia that operates illegal gun trade in the UK.
And one quick thing to jump in, that asshole's just murdered Julian Assange. I just got to say that, Javid, whatever his name is. Go on, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. I mean, of course, Julian Assange, first of all, has been arrested in the UK for a violation made in the UK. Now, a lot of people, the problem with Julian Assange is that, first of all, he was unjustly accused in Scandinavia, which is a place which is used to move accusations like this. And of course, it was Hillary Clinton who wanted him dead. And Hillary Clinton wants him dead also because of those emails that he has revealed, no? Including the ones with Podesta. So poor Assange, I mean, maybe he should have understood from the beginning of his exposure work that he had to side with the right side of history. Instead, at the beginning, he trusted the left way too much. I mean, remember that Assange started his revelations mainly thanks to the left-wing papers, no? And he initially was kind of endorsed by all those people who are now not really on his side any longer. Because when he started to really reveal the depth of all the crap that was behind the scenes, you know, then he became something, oh, that's too much, you know. And when during the Trump campaign for the presidential election, he obviously sided with Trump in a way, then he became, no, the enemy, no? The military-industrial complex in the US is, of course, still very powerful. And that's a big problem. Because the military industrial complex wants Julian Assange and wants to punish Julian Assange. Okay? But it's also true that the military industrial complex in recent years has somehow has to also answer to a president which is starting to think differently. No?
Yeah.
I'm confident that Julian Assange could be pardoned if here in the US.
By Trump, yeah.
Yes, okay. But the problem is they're going to let him die earlier in the UK.
Yeah.
Your problem. They're in the UK, you know. That's
well, I think that it looks like he's coming out to US, but of course, Trump said if Hillary would be in prison if he became the president, didn't he, on the stage that time? So he's exposed Hillary to Assange. So hopefully, you never know. Let's see. Trump may step in. Who knows? You know. Hey, listen, Leo. Before we close, I want to ask you something, because people have been asking me this. It's a really stupid question to ask you, but someone's asked me to ask you. Why is the Pope stop letting people kiss his ring? You know, I don't mean his butt. I mean his actual ring on his finger.
Yeah.
There's too many people kissing his butt. That's for sure. You know.
No,
anyway, go on.
Officially, he's not doing it because of health reasons, because he thinks, he said he made, of course, personally, he did it because he couldn't be bothered to do it, you could see that he wasn't, anymore into the mood, but officially then when he started to be subject to criticism about this move, that of course was portrayed in a video that then became even a meme, and they tried to, but the thing is that basically, Pope Francis invented then an excuse. Oh, it's not how you say, hygienic, because a lot of people kiss the same ring and you can transmit bacteria.
Hey, listen, Leo, and you don't know where
the Pope should have some kind of like a little one of those special antibacterial cloth, and do this every time.
Well, hey, you don't know where. Well, I was going to say you don't know where people's lips have been, but you do know where people's lips have been. That's the problem, and you know where people's hands have been. When I shake people's hands, I think, "Whoa, I know what they've been doing with those hands all day." Whew. But no. So, how long do you give him, Leo, before you go? How long do you give him before he's out?
Well, I mean, the problem here that this is not only a pope, this is a political leader of this progressive socialist nightmare we are living. If Joe Biden wins these elections,
Oh God!
Francis is gonna stay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If Joe Biden doesn't get elected, which I think will be the case,
Me too.
because going around the US, the only way Joe Biden is going to win is by tricking these elections, which is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Everything is possible.
Yeah.
And we know that they have been involved in some dodgy stuff in the past, and that they might reattempt things like that.
Yeah.
And there is, unfortunately, the electoral system in the US is still not perfect, and there is too many flaws in the system. Okay, so illegal immigrants can participate, people that of course can maybe use their dead grandmother's card because in the end we had so many people, even in Florida there was a lot of controversial things that happened during the last elections, the midterm elections. So I think that if Joe Biden becomes the president, of course Pope Francis will stay in his place. If Trump instead wins and Ratzinger dies, because that is also what Ratzinger is very, very sick. Okay, he has leukemia, whatever he has. Some people say he has AIDS. Everything is possible, but I mean he's not in very good conditions. But once he dies, then this pope will have the possibility to resign, because they don't want to have three popes. You know, they don't want to have Pope Francis resigning while Ratzinger is still alive, because that will mean three popes. Now, it's true that the Jesuits at the moment have three Jesuit generals. We have Hans Kovenbach, that basically resigned many years ago in an unprecedented move, and he's still alive. We have Adolf Nicolas, who is still alive, just resigned, and now 2 years, and now we have Sosa, the new Venezuelan communist, who is also Jesuit general and friend of Pope Francis. So now we have three, basically, either former or present. We have the present Jesuit general. So, because recently the papacy has been inspired very much by the moves of the Jesuits, it's possible that maybe Pope Francis will eventually resign, even if Ratzinger is still alive. But I have, my idea is instead that if Ratzinger dies, that definitely a moment in which maybe Pope Francis will then start to make very clear that he wants to resign. It will become really evident from the moment of his funeral, of Ratzinger's funeral. I mean, it might even be possible that if Ratzinger's funeral will attract, it will attract very big audience, and of course, the interstate and also cardinals coming from all over the world, that might be an excellent moment for Pope Francis to say, okay, now I've done mine, and it's also my turn to retire. And at that point, there will be a black, not in the sense of Jesuit. At that point, there will be actually black Pope, which will be picked up from Africa. And like you said, you were interviewing somebody from Africa earlier on, you told me.
Yeah, he was an amazing man, honestly. Amazing
Africa
man.
is, unfortunately, mostly in the hands of the French, in certain regions of Africa.
For the uranium mines.
Well, the uranium mines are also in the hands of the Queen of England, so
That's right, yeah.
So you have either one or the other. But in any case, the French have created all these problems, pushing all these migrants towards North Africa and then flooding Europe.
Yeah.
But the French, who are the French? Macron is just a puppet of Pope Francis. He has demonstrated that.
Yeah.
And so everything goes always back to Rome. Now, there is also the Jewish element, the Zionist element, that the Papal Zionist element has made a sort of deal with the Vatican during the Second Vatican Council. And so we have this alliance between certain elements in Zionism and the Vatican. And that's why, of course, I've always been condemning both as being, but as I said earlier on in the show, we should also rediscuss our view of Zionism, because if we condemn the whole thing, then we are condemning a whole race, and we are condemning a whole nation that's there. You can't now remove Israel out of the map. Okay, so.
Well, there's no doubt, Leo. From where I can see, I'm meeting a lot of people now, and there's definitely a smell in salts in the air, and people are questioning things more and more and more about their own beliefs and about what they've about history and looking at everything. That's why I like you, because you look at everything, seen and unseen. And you were even an exorcist, weren't you? At one point in the blooming yeah, you were, weren't you?
Yeah. I actually. I mean, even since I arrived here in the US, I've been already practicing a remote possession, depossession, after I met somebody who have asked my help. Because you see, once you are an exorcist, you always stay an exorcist, because exorcism is something that you have to, but basically you discover once you are possessed. Because the moment in which you discover the enemy and you cast out this enemy, you want to cast out this enemy also for the other people.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you become involved in this war against the demonic. And when you recognize that somebody has this demonic force inside them, and you recognize it immediately, and this happened to me recently here in the US during a big event, and you recognize that that person has those problems, you want to help that person.
Yeah. You said something. Sorry to jump in, Leo. You said something. I know we keep going to say we're going to close the show in a minute, but just a quick thing I wanted to say. You mentioned something I thought was very important earlier on. I've written it down. I've blooming lost it now, but it was something like about a possession almost thing about our mental sickness or something like that. But I wrote in my book, Leo, that most people
actually dedicated the last chapter of my book. Volume 6.66 to the difference between mental sickness and possession.
That's what you were talking about. I've remembered now. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mental sickness and possession. Yeah.
I think that people want to maybe buy my new book, Confessions of an Illuminati, Volume 6.66, The Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. They will find in this book, right at the end of this book, there is a chapter, which is chapter 7, which is dedicated to the secrets of the rite of exorcism. And I basically get the reader to go through understanding the 4 stages of demonic possession. Because first you have to understand what you have. Then the meaning and importance of the exorcism rite. And then explaining also how the 1999 exorcism revision was made by the Vatican to facilitate the demonic infiltration of our society, because you don't have a weapon to stop these demonic forces. Then they come pouring into our. They are coming from another dimension into our dimension, but only if we invite them in. Now there has been people we have discussed in the past, like Crowley, who have opened the gates wide open for these entities to come in. And one of the places where they started to come in was California, South California. So for me, being here, it's a mission. First of all. And so that's why the last subchapter of my book, last book, is called Demonic Possession or Mental Illness, which basically sums up what we just said now, how to really distinguish it. And there has been people who, professionals from the psychiatric field who have actually endorsed the possibility that certain things are inevitably demonic possessions, and they can't be, even if they are themselves academics and, people that, of course, study the mental sickness and so on. They know that for some things there is no explanation. When a person starts talking in a language you don't know, starts behaving in a way that is clearly not of this world, well, then I would suggest to people to definitely have a look. Then you have, of course, there is the presence of Satan in certain institutions, in certain political parties, like the Democrats these days. They're all possessed. Now, I'm not saying that they are constantly possessed, because when you're constantly possessed, then you have to be exorcised. But you notice when you talk with them about certain things that start to twitch and become possessed.
Yep.
You know, because you are debating their version of reality. The thing that I fear most is that this political division of the last few years, especially since Trump has come to power, has shown to us that the left is not willing to enter a democratic debate any longer.
And it's also exposed their demonic possession with the way they are acting.
Yeah, expose their demonic possession, but also they're not. But that's why, and that is the reason why they're not able to debate anymore. To debate in a, you know, in a calm way, because I mean, before there was, even here within the U.S., a very tranquil modality after the elections. You will not hear really about the confrontation between Democrats and Republicans for at least 3 or 4 years before the campaign restarts, and then you have of course the re-elections. But you had a moment in which the U.S. was united for many. I mean, since the foundation, the U.S. has never been so separated by ideology, and this is what I'm seeing. Because there is elements of this society that are completely brainwashed, and they don't want to accept it.
Do you know Go on, Leo. I was just going to say, you know, I've got to just mention this, Leo, as well, because I wrote myself in my book up that it's clear to me, and I've always thought this, that people are possessed physically, spiritually, and psychologically by rogue governments and by the system which is choking them with fear and debt and slavery, and it's parasitic, you know. So I feel that when we talk about possession, I feel that we might be surprised, and that fine line between psychological problems, which most of the psychological problems and the symptoms of health psychologically are given, that they're put on us by the system we live in. Most people I meet in here, I've said it many times, they come in here and tell me how desperate they are and how depressed they are. Well, that's a natural symptom from this system driving them fucking mad, you know? It's a system that's just completely mad, driving them mad. So just a quick thing, I think, Leo, and this is the truth now, because I do some work with people, not so much anymore, because it's too much of a big responsibility for me, but I'll tell everyone right now that most people need an exorcism, and I think humanity needs an exorcism. This is what I think, Leo, now. And you don't have to be somewhere, you know, like you do the work at a distance. You know, I think humanity needs a complete cleansing and an exorcism. I really mean it, because at the moment we're possessed.
But that's why today, now at the end of the show, I wanted to make clear what are the 6 factors that we can describe are the factors which really makes us understand that these people are really possessed. And even I mean, I'm sorry to say, even these Democrats, they become democrats. Let's say, what are these factors? So the first factor is the attraction, is this the aversion towards religion. It's the first factor. Now we see that in the left-wing progressive world, they have an aversion towards religion. Okay, so this is a strong sign. Then we have another sign: irrational speech versus rational speech. Okay, and we notice when we talk with, even at, I'm not saying at a religious level, but at a political level, that these people strongly have demonic forces, because they start to behave irrationally. The speech and logical process of the schizophrenic are often incoherent. Okay, they produce word salads and irrationalism that doesn't make any sense. In this case, they want to make sense of nonsense, because they are pushing an ideology which is completely
absolutely.
Then you have another point here. We have learning versus supernatural knowledge. Now, the demons in the New Testament will speak to people to convey knowledge that otherwise could not have been known to the possessed individuals. So these possessed individuals at times have knowledge which is coming to them from a source that is not of this world. And that gives them the possibility to talk maybe in a language they didn't even know before. So that's another very important sign. Then we have another sign, which is normal versus the occultic phenomena. This means that this is an aspect of the demonic activity, which is, of course, for many plain spooky. But what happens is that around the demonic, you have the occurrences of poltergeist, levitation, trances, telepathy. And these things start to occur. So we actually say, oh, wow, then there is something that is wrong. Okay, in this house, or this building,
or this person here, yeah.
Then you have the fifth element, I say, of this whole thing, which is, then they claim to be, people claim this guy is possessed. So he's not anymore a mental patient, but is something more. Now, I found out, because of being locked up by the enemy, at times when I was, you are locked up and you feel like you are a political dissident in fucking Soviet Russia. Sorry. A show because she says it's very ignorant to cast. But in that case, yes, I will be like in Soviet Russia. And while the mental patient will speak about certain things that don't approach the spiritual level, with the demonically possessed person, they always have this element of spirituality that you see popping up. Even in this mental, it makes the difference between mental possession and mental illness, because there is something there that is despising religion, is despising the faith, is despising. Okay, now it's increasingly difficult to understand if this is the work of the demonic or the work of something that is wrong in this person at a mental level. But at a mental level, then in that case, it could be something wrong in their own system. Maybe the lack of some vitamin, something. It can be easily. I think that a lot of mental illnesses, to tell you the truth, of today could be easily solved with a supplement. And people will say, why? Because this modern world, this modern society, has made us so stressed and so that at times we need certain supplements.
And also, Leo, sorry to jump in. Remember that word supplement, because I wanted to go back to it. But also another thing that can be a remedy is throwing someone in freezing water. We had the doctors on the television here getting people off antidepressants who were really depressed, and some of them seemed demonically on the edge. And you get them to jump in a freezing river a few times a day, and of course, or even have a freezing cold shower. You can't even remember who you are because so everything's stripped away. But yeah. So there's go on.
Effects of therapy, if a prayer solves the problem, or if you throw them in a cold river and it solves the problem, then it was probably not schizophrenia to start with. So if the medicine helps alleviate the problem, it was not demon possession. But also, let's be very careful here about these medicines that they're giving us. Because Big Pharma is pushing on us stuff which is basically increasing even the level of people going out and shooting other people. Because a lot of these so-called, like the prods, I can think, have created potential assassins. Unfortunately, that's the weak spot of a society with a lot of weapons. That maybe every now and then, one of these people could get out of their minds, possessed. Most of the time, they're possessed. It's also true that if a specific illness is cured by prayer, then it's most probably not a mental illness, but it's something to do with the more serious the state of demonic possession. Now, the Vatican in 1999 censored part, transformed, edited. How can you say? The last thing they wanted to reform was exorcism. First of all, they had to destroy the Roman Rite. So, no more Mass in Latin, no more. Certain prayers are being changed even by Pope Francis. Have you heard the recently he changed the prayer?
Yeah, what was that? Remind me of that.
Yeah, well, he just changed the translation of a prayer. So, because he didn't think that it was the translation was correct. But in that case, what you're doing there is you are basically transforming that prayer.
Yeah.
And the power of that prayer.
Yeah. Have you got it there?
Sorry?
Have you got the prayer there? No.
Okay, so for example, just a second, I'm going to see exactly which is the passage that Pope Francis transformed, because I have it here on my computer.
And while you're doing that, there was the sixth thing you were going to say about the in your book, about the...
Yeah. Like the sixth thing is that the hallucinations and that are cured by the psychological treatment are then instead uncurable when you are dealing with a demon. So only Christ and a proper liberation prayer can eventually. But we know also that exorcism is not only an exclusivity of the Christian faith. Exorcism existed a long time before even Christianity came into fruition.
Well, it's like the shamanic stuff. I mean, I've done shamanic work myself, Leo. I don't particularly like doing it. I've done some training because it had a tremendous effect, and it sort of really it really touched me, the experiences I had with it, But I'm very reluctant to do it myself because it's a huge responsibility, which I don't like undertaking. But yeah, before the Christianity thing, the shamans in the old days, they used to take spirits off people and pull entities off and this kind of thing, didn't they?
So I've just well, of course, the shamans used to do it in certain pagan cults. They used to do it. The fact that you could be possessed and actually you could be exorcised is even endorsed within the satanic churches, or the Church of Telema of Aleister Crowley, the Gnostic Catholic Church, the Ecclesia Gnostica Cattolica of Aleister Crowley has their own prayer of exorcism. So why do the Satanists want to be exorcised? Now, what happens is that the occultist, the Satanist, the person that is involved in Crowley's work might get possessed by the wrong spirit while they are evoking some other spirit. Okay? And then they want to cast it out because it doesn't match what they want. The Satanists then cast out spirits when it doesn't match their own, requirement. But that's a very risky thing. So let's go back to Pope Francis that has changed the Lord's Prayer. Now, there is a line that was church that is specific. God might this line is suggesting that God might lead us into temptation. When you are reciting, do not let us fall into temptation. I mean, it's part of the phrase of one of the main prayers of the Catholic Church. So he wanted to change the whole thing because he thought that it's a misunderstanding and that God never leads you into temptation. He only leads you to good thing. It's Satan that leads you into temptation. Okay?
Right.
So, now, of course, one can debate this. It's debatable. Why? Because for some in the old, we have to understand that Satan is in a way the dark side of, because God is everything and is control of everything. Okay? So then you have Satan, who is this fallen angel, and he's tempting us. That is his role. Okay? But even his role as somebody who has tempted us since the time of the original sin is a role that comes down from the creation of God. Because without this temptation, they wouldn't have, man and woman wouldn't have been casted out of heaven. And if we want to stay within the allegory, the description, if you don't want to take it as a reality of Adam and Eve, without that serpent coming there and saying, why don't you bite this apple? Why don't you bite this apple? We will not have then the being casted out of heaven. So we will be still in contact with God. So Satan's role was to actually tempt us, so then we can be casted out of heaven, and then once we are casted out of heaven, it's up to us to find a way back to heaven. Okay? So the fact that the Lord's Prayer that originates in Matthew 6:9-13 has this element, which is basically, God, don't lead us into temptation. It has a fundament which is goes back down to the fact that in reality He let this happen. Because do you think that if God didn't want I'm going back always to something that is, of course, very symbolic, allegoric.
It's that will as well, isn't it? You know, is thy will be done. Yeah.
It's the will that, when you have this apple in front of you, you're free to bite it or not bite it.
Yeah.
So that's the whole the whole importance of this allegory, no?
Free will, yeah.
So it's up to you. But once you have done that choice, you have been led into temptation by Satan. But it's also true that it's God Himself that has permitted this temptation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a good
some
point.
Christians have vented fury over the significant change to the centuries-old prayer. Because you don't change the Lord's Prayer. Only the Lord can do that. So Albert Mohler, who is the president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, recently said that the changes are deeply problematic.
Do you think it's like the Pope stamping his authority and saying, I'm God, I'm the one that you must worship? Was that part of it, do you think, or not?
The Lord's Prayer is not the Pope's prayer. He shouldn't have any say in something that has been going. The Lord's Prayer, okay, it's called the Lord's Prayer, okay.
Perhaps it's just part of breaking up, like showing the authority that he can break anything and and start something new. Perhaps part of that whole new world religion thing, and all that.
The Lord's Prayer, for example, the Church of England and the Catholic Church use slightly different versions.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the Church of England traditional version of Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, blah blah blah. Then you have the Catholic version, which is slightly different in some points. But this is not a small point, because this is like, in the Church of England version, you have, and lead us not into temptation. Now, the same thing was in the Catholic version, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Okay? Now, Pope Francis wake up, and he believes that the original line portrays God in a false light. Ooh, wow. Let's take the whole thing, guys. Francis has woken up yesterday morning, has decided that we have to change the Lord's Prayer.
What does it say in that one? Is it daily bread or super substantial bread? Because that's a part of the difference I remember in one of them. Give us this day our substantial bread or super substantial bread, or give us our day our daily bread.
No, it's basically, despite the opposition, it's not the main thing is about a father does not lead into temptation. A father helps you to get immediately, he said at the time. So it's based around this phrase here. It is not a good translation because it speaks to God who induces into temptation. So he wants to avoid that, and then he wants to translate it in the one who leads into your temptation is Satan. Yeah.
It's a strange twist, isn't it?
So instead of saying,
go on.
Father, don't lead us into temptation. We have been saying this since we call it il Padre Nostro in Italian, no?
Yeah.
You call it, what do you call it in English? The Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Okay, the Lord's Prayer.
Hey, now, and the other quick thing, Leo, I suppose there's another part of it. It's like, look, you're my little children or whatever. If you know, I created all this thing. You want to go on porn and jerk off till you're blue in the face and your balls fall off and you feel sick and you hate yourself and self-loathe. You want to go and drink yourself to death, smoke ganja, do what you want, go punch some people in the face. You want to do that, fine. I suppose what's being said is that there's an ethical an alarm bell inside you, which in its pristine state to tell you that's the wrong thing to do. You know what I'm trying to say? So perhaps it's like, do what the hell you like, do thy will, but you'll feel shit if you do, you know?
Of course, here it seems like the Pope's suggestion is something unusual also because he's a Pope that has been gradually mining every single certainty within this Catholic Church.
Right, and he let McCarrick off, and McCarrick was screwing all the young boys. I mean, come on. How dare he talk about ethics and will and morals, you know?
Now, Pope Francis is changing the Lord's Prayer because he says the responsibility of all the evil is of Satan.
Yeah.
Okay? And he wants to basically say that he represents only the good God that will, you know, pray and help us. You pray too, and he will solve all our problems.
Yeah.
Now, the change that basically is for many, it's for many experts, is because he's trying to get this current translation corrected because you know, it implies that God leads followers astray. I don't think that's the case, because as I demonstrated by explaining you everything from the original sin, because of course if we are talking about temptation we have to go back also to the original sin. Everybody's talking about Matthew 6:13, but everybody's forgetting Genesis here, okay? Because we have to go back to the original sin, and at that point we understand that yes, Satan has led us astray with Eve choosing to bite this apple, and then they all lose their position and they are kicked out of the, you know, it's like being kicked out of a club.
Yeah, let me ask you something, Leo, because I'm curious, because I think people might be, I know we're going on, you know, we got to close in a minute, but just a quick thing. So I think we're also screwed up, you know. So the original sin, we took I don't know enough about it. I'm not an expert on the Bible, but it's almost like from the get-go we've been told that we're really committing a sin by having sex, you know. Oh, and he touched.
Well, no, that is.
Hang on. So let me just say this. So you know, Adam and Eve, you know, they, you know, they're like. I just wondered if people are feeling really bad about, you know, touching each other and loving each other and whether it's a sin. And what do you feel on that, Leo? What's the score there?
That is completely wrong perception.
Right.
Here we have to understand. First of all, this is a very important but symbolical, allegorical. It's showing us something, because the Bible talks always on various levels. No, it talks for common folk. It talks also for a higher level of understanding, whereby you have. In every single phrase of the Bible, various levels of interpretation. Now, if we interpret it by the letter, then, oh, of course, Adam and Eve, they go around with their thing in front. You know, you always have this depiction, and they're going around with this little thing in front of the covering their intimate parts, and they're all naked there in the Garden of Eden, having a great jolly time, and woo! The serpent, the tempter, Satan arrives and ruins the whole show. Now, guys, the thing is that without this ruining the whole show is symbolic of the fact that without this decision, they couldn't materialize in the materialistic world. They would have stayed forever in the spiritual level.
No babies, no babies. Hey, which might not have been such a bad.
One, you know. Then they were Eve. Eve was shaped out of taking a piece of the man, and then, you know, the costole, how you say in English, and then, you know, you shape up this beautiful creature, which is the woman, and the woman, of course, is there, but they were close to God, and one day she eats the apple. Now, I mean, of course, we can go into a study that can last years on the symbolics of it all, on what does it really mean. But the thing is that you don't put into discussion the Lord's Prayer, because the Lord's Prayer, actually, if studied in an initiatic way, it's actually correct as it is. Because if you think about it, God is everything, good and evil, is the creator of everything. Satan is a fallen angel, which Okay, the thing is this. You have a Gnostic also approach to this. The Gnostics said that in the end times, it will actually Lucifer will work, and basically Satan will work with God in a way to get everybody back in track, and to bring them back to the Garden of Eden in a way.
Would you, just a quick thing, Leo, would you say that that could be, do you mean there that Satan will give people so many temptations and make them feel so shit about themselves after they've fallen and done all these terrible things that it's like there's nowhere else to go but home, back to the light, back to God? In other words, I've fallen, I want to come back. And I spoke with Eric. Yeah, go on.
There is a moment in which basically Satan tempts everybody who follows him will be automatically following the wrong side, and following at that point they will be lost forever.
Yeah.
But instead there is, and this is of course in every single religion, I mean you have it in the Muslim, you have it in the Christian, you have it even in the Jewish religion or any other religion, the Abrahamic faiths in particular have this moment in which there is this, there is even in the old Viking religion, the Ragnarok, in the moment in which the gods, finally there is this crepuscular day, this turning point for humanity that has to make a choice and side either with the good or with the bad.
I think we're there now, Leo. I think I meet people every day and you can tell they're starved to spiritual death. I think humanity now has become starved to spiritual death through a lack of connection to themselves, and everything's outward. It's always grab out there. There was that lovely vision of the musk deer, wasn't there? There was a deer that they used to kill to take the musk out of its navel, because it was a true thing. They don't do it now, but the analogy is that the musk deer is always out there looking, sniffing for what's coming from itself. So I think we've gone so outside ourselves and grabbing but the next thing that we've come away from God in ourselves, and we've come away from our spiritual essence, that I think the world is starving to spiritual death now, and people want to come home. I think we're at that turning point, Leo,
Well,
I really do.
In this kind of situation, really, I don't see changing a small phrase from lead us not into temptation into do not let us fall into temptation can have a great change in our reality of today. Why is the Pope putting his hands onto something as holy as a prayer which is recited by millions, billions of people, not even Catholic? This is the Lord's Prayer is something that goes well beyond Catholicism.
And the other thing is well, maybe God's saying, fall, or whether you fall or are led, don't bloody blame me. Don't keep blaming me. Take responsibility and come back home to God and yourself. Don't blame me when you go jerking off on the computer and drinking booze. So.
Well, but they want to blame somebody. They want to blame Satan.
That's right.
For something that in reality is a choice that you have from the beginning. The beginning of this whole creation, in which we have been given the choice to choose between good and evil.
Yeah.
So it might not be a perfect translation, but God, in a way, is inducing us into temptation because He's putting a test in front of us, a test for our faith. You understand?
Yeah.
That is what the Pope wants to avoid. The Pope wants to avoid people being able to choose. He wants everything to be so modernized, and so that, we also have to think about the fact that the Pope is starting to modify things in preparation for a one-world religion.
Yes.
So he's already crafting Catholicism, because then later on it will be merged with Islam, then it will be merged with this, with the Jewish faith, and then it will merge with everything else in this great big thing which is being shaped up in front of our eyes. Because
Chrislam, they call it Chrislam, don't they?
Initially it's going to be Chrislam, but then it's going to become the religion of the AI, of the artificial intelligence, which will be discussed next year in the Vatican with this meeting on artificial intelligence. So it's and that is something that I have discussed in my book, volume 6.66, and it's very important, because the moment in which the Vatican is becoming this, the Vatican has done a deal here. A deal with certain forces, even the Tibetan forces that the Tibetan forces, the lamas that basically have been involved with certain traditions, have made a deal with the Vatican. That's why nowadays the lamas are free to roam and preach in the West. It's because originally they made a deal with the Pope and with the Vatican. It's a secret deal that has been made, but it's a deal that is being made so that gradually, you know, the lamas of Tibet come here, the Pope has the freedom to go there, and then everything comes together. And at one point, here we are, boom, and one world religion. And it doesn't make any, because in the meantime, the Dalai Lama has renounced his, you know, sacrality, the fact that he might reincarnate, and so he's also destroying that part of things that maybe wasn't. So everybody's starting to mold these religions in a way that they can then fit into the one world religion. The only religion that is not molding anything is the Islam, which still stays separate in their various branches. And those various branches are instrumental for waging wars, for doing things like that, and of course for keeping a grip over the control of oil, which is still, in 2019, unfortunately, a commodity which is very important.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh God, hey, there's not many people I know on the show that I can speak to for nearly 2 hours, and I want to carry on. You know, really.
We'll go on and on and on.
It's brilliant. Honestly, thank you, Leo. And of course, your books highlight that. You talk about everything. You know, you're one of the rare guests. You know, I could speak to anything with you, you know, literally, and go down any rabbit hole with you, and it's a delight to speak to you. And we're gonna have to close because it's nearly 2 hours now, but I could go on and on and on. We'll have you on the show again, but let me just put that up again. There we go, Saturday the 22nd of June 2019. Go to Leo's leozagami.com. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I want to promote it because it's an event that, of course, is gonna also be very important for me, because I'm going there with my wife. Her father was a veteran of foreign wars.
Wow.
And we are very close to the veterans, and part of the process of this event will go to the veterans of foreign wars. And so being in Antelope, in Sacramento County, this Saturday, the 22nd of June 2019, for me is first of all a big honor, because I feel welcome. Since I arrived here in the US, I've been really feeling welcome. I've
noticed, yeah.
I was such a difficult situation for me in Italy. We suffered so much persecution. And having the police knocking at your door for a post on a social network like Facebook at 9 o'clock in the evening, just a month and a half before we left, that just topped it all. I mean, it was just too much. And in 2014, I got the doors of my house broken into by the Carabinieri because of my political stand, and also for my Facebook post. I was threatened constantly. Aside from this, then I was condemned on the 5th of June by a judge that wants me to pay 11,000 euros immediately, and left the possibility for another judge in a civil case that will be maybe pursued by the accusers for even asking more money. So once you give them 11,000, it's not finished. That's when they start taking more and more and more and more and more. There is other 2 court cases that were moving against me also. So
yeah, it's the bloody mafia. That's where Aaron Russo talked about it on some of his great interviews. You know, they come like the police sort of come and say it's the police, and hey, look, we'll take some of this, we'll look after you. It's the mafia, you know. This. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're out of there. I'm so glad.
Avoid, and that, of course, for my wife, because I mean, after 10 years of living in Italy and so much persecution, she couldn't stand anymore this kind of situation whereby, you know, every 2 minutes you go just and drive down the road and you get stopped by the police for no reason.
My God. And what a lovely lady. I met her in the conference with you in London, and it was an honor, you know, give her my love. It was an honor to meet her. What a lovely, seems a really lovely lady, you know.
Oh, Christie, she did a great job. She actually published, as you know, also her own book, Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, which is also a book which reveals what she has gone through from a female point of view, no, from her own point. And she really stood next to me as a great soldier, as a great fighter for freedom. But of course, I mean, we are not saints here. We are not claiming to be martyrs of the faith, that we can be crucified over and over again for our beliefs. So staying in Italy was just unbearable at one point. And I'm sorry that I had to leave, my family and so on. But even my family was not very understanding, because they were brainwashed left, right, and center. And at one point, I had to even fear my own family because they were brainwashed.
Well, of course, and that's the same with a lot of people. Like a lady in here the other day, she said, my family is like my enemy. And often they are. They're the first ones to gang up on you and say you've gone completely nuts. And but slowly but steadily they start realizing that you're speaking the truth. And you almost had your passport taken away from you. Thank goodness you just got out in time, by the sound of it, Leo. Yeah?
I just got out in time, because after the 5th of June, I will probably get my passport taken. And so, until I give them this 11,000, that, as I said, was initial. I mean, 11,000 would be approximately, $13,000, $14,000. It might seem like a small amount, but the problem is when you start, they don't stop.
Yeah.
So it's just like they start taking. And I'm not a rich person. I have not made millions with these books. So I'm surviving here. So already, you want to make me bankrupt. Matteo Renzi, the guy who is conspiring this weekend and already now with Barack Obama, these people are my enemies. I mean, Matteo Renzi conspired actively against me to have me arrested and locked up in 2014. Then got my books out of commerce. He made sure that the publisher, back then Uneditori, these idiots, they took away they stopped printing my books. I had to change publisher. Another publisher, Collana Exoterica, stopped immediately publish my book on the Pope. I also had to find a new publisher for that. They went to every single publisher saying, you don't have to print anymore the books of Leo Zagami. Then they went to the Order of Journalists, because in Italy you have an Order of Journalists, which is unheard in other countries, but is a creation of Mussolini back in the days. And this Order of Journalists had the order of not discussing anymore anything to do with Leo Zagami, to not have me anymore on radio, TV shows. So how can I make a living if I can't promote my books, if I can't talk anymore on any radio or TV?
Well, that's what they do. Their idea is to choke you off so that you can't do anything. And I spoke to the Reverend today. Have a look at that show. It's just gone up. Everybody just gone up before Leo's show here. Amazing guy. One of the princes in Africa. And he actually said, unless we can build our own platforms independently of government control, they will be able to choke you off, And fear is very paralytic to consciousness. So most people are not telling the truth now because they're scared of being punished. You imagine that, Leo? God, we're in such end times. Talk about end times,
That's how it is, And I just, this is coming out as my new book next month. It's the second edition of Volume 1. And I have a whole new chapter in it, in which I discuss topics that I think are very important, like the connections between communism and the New World Order, the Illuminati, how these whole things came into fruition, and how this whole evil originated back in the days of Atlantis. When we are talking here about, a symbolic eating Adam and Eve eating the apple. I mean, we have to understand that this is symbolic of something. We were once in contact with our creators. We are creator, with God himself, with those who have put us on this planet. Okay, we lost that contact because at one point we just didn't follow the rules of engagement.
We turned our back on it.
Sorry?
We turned our back on it, on them. Yep.
And so we lost that thing, we lost that connection. So now I have, in this new book which is coming out, I've also dedicated a chapter to Atlantis.
And reconnecting.
And I think that, for those interested, this will be the new edition of my book with a whole new chapter added to it that is going to come out. And then we have, of course, my newest book, which is volume 6.66, which is going very well, and which I will be promoting and presenting in Arizona.
Yep.
And on the 30th of June for another event.
Excellent.
Which is in Kingman, which is actually looking very well because we have a lot of bookings for it.
Oh, man. Do you know, Leo, I'm just so delighted. You know why? You know, you were almost chased out of Italy, and there's an old saying, your donkey dies, you bury it and find the gold, you know. That's what I'm delighted. You've gone to America. Do you know what? People are going to support you so much better there probably than Italy, and you'll be probably speaking much more than you were. You'll be heard. Your truths will be heard.
I couldn't talk anymore in Italy. The last time I presented a book was in June 2018, so 1 year ago. And what happened was, and I still have it on camera, I mean, what happened was outrageous. I was presenting a book which was predominantly esoteric. It didn't have much of politics, stuff, but the Italian version was, I had actually made it focused on the esoteric elements, so it didn't get too controversial. And I was there presenting this book, and I was attacked by followers of the Democratic Party of Matteo Renzi. And I was attacked, and I was basically insulted during a book presentation. All these communists that were sitting down there and it was so insulting that after that I just picked up the boxes of books that I had. It was my first presentation for this volume 5 in Italy. And I said to my publisher, that's it. I'm going to keep the box of books, but my presentation are finished in this country because I don't want to be insulted any longer.
Well, I'll tell you what, Leo. I got to close now. We're on the 2-hour mark. I don't want to stop talking to you, but I want to say this to you before you go. And I know I've said this many times. Thank you for being you, Leo Zagami, because one day, well, now already, but there's people who haven't been born yet who are going to appreciate what you've done, and not many people would go to those lengths that you've gone to surpass that fear of criticism, fear of punishment, fear of being locked up, fear of your family being ripped apart. People, let me warn you all, you've got to get more balls and grow more balls to be like these kind of people like Zagami and people. Do you know why? Because honestly, if you don't, these chains are going to go around you and they're going to choke you off. I just been in PC World today looking at the new Google thing. You can ask it what to do, you can shout down the room, what do I do today, what shall I wear, what shall I think, who shall... For goodness sake, you're walking into your own prison, everybody. So get Leo Zagami's books. Here's the one I'm just going to put up. Invisible Masters, The Puppeteer's Hidden Power. And there's his poster again. Listen, help Leo and support Leo, because these are the Martin Luther Kings of the world who are going to take us away from slavery. One last thing, Leo, before you go. Speak to the people, just a little quick thing, who are in terrible despair. We're talking about that demonic possession of the system which is crushing us and making us all secretly so unhappy and so miserable and we also feel so helpless sometimes. Give people a bit of advice about tapping back into that spiritual power, that spiritual location which we're all dislocated and dismembered from, and hence feeling spiritually empty inside. Give people some advice what to do.
Okay, let's remember that one of the biggest door openers into Satan's realm can be alcohol abuse, drug usage, and any kind of dabbling or experimenting with anything that has to do with the occult and the New Age movement.
And most people drink every night.
So people need to keep that in mind, because these door openers are a weak spot that we all have.
And porn, right?
I personally feel like it's very good that here in the US now, in many states, for example, marijuana is legal, because I find this marijuana is not a drug that is actually opening it, but often heals people. Of course, if you then make a concentrated wax which has 90% of THC, whatever, and you smoke your head off, then probably you will put yourself in the hands of Satan, But moderate use of alcohol, of marijuana, avoiding cocaine or drugs that can lead dependency into something that is not transforming ourselves into something that we are not, because that's what these drugs do. they transform. And as I said, they give us the possibility for possession. So the therapeutic use of cannabis is another thing. And of course, even the social use of cannabis is in a much more moderate way. I see that now that it's legal here, actually people are not making a big fuss out of it, and it's just like alcohol now. So it's great. And, it's much better than having a bunch of 16-year-olds selling it on the streets of London and stabbing themselves for marijuana.
And I'd much rather be around people who've had a smoke than people who are getting pissed on booze, They don't turn into Superman and want to beat you up,
Absolutely. And then you have, nowadays you have synthetic marijuana, opioids, cocaine, all these things that really should be, these are the drugs that, people, they should fight. But is prohibition really the solution of all this? Because we are going back to the original sin here. Is your will to decide where to go? So, if we are then, we want to eliminate them really, if governments were really honest about eliminating the mafias, they could do it in one day. They just legalize all the drugs and these people will go bankrupt. And maybe we should think about it. Because, then we can control the quality. Then it's your own thing. It's your own decision to limit yourself. Okay? But you can't... this prohibition has been making only money for the wrong people.
Hey, look, it's even illegal to kill yourself, Leo. You can't even make a decision to kill yourself. And come on, man. Well, you know why? Because your birth certificate's done on the stock exchange, so they'll tell you when you're going to die. Thank you very much, because you're still worth some money for them, yeah?
Well, of course. Then there is another thing that, is an ominous presence in our time is how excessively prescribed pharmaceuticals are also creating their own addictions, especially in countries like the US now. A lot of people are addicted to prescribed pharmaceuticals. In people like Michael Jackson died like that.
Big money in that, yeah.
A big money in that, but this is an end time scenario where there's a growing reality of evil, and we don't want to fall out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. Okay, so we want to exercise from us all those negative obsessions like money, preoccupations about, in superficial preoccupations in our lives that sometimes grow our own stress and become the cause for our own emotional paralysis, So I would say that we need to live a healthy life.
Feed the spirit.
And avoid the stress. It's not easy for anybody, of course. It's not easy for anybody. But also the possibility of using exorcism as well as religious and spiritual belief and practices to fight the takeover of the human soul by Satan and his technocratic religion should be understood by all of us to combat the dark forces we're facing now in this moment, this important, very important, critical moment for humanity. So we have to understand that exorcising that demon might mean also curing ourselves from a cancer that will be created by that demon in our body. I don't know if you understood that concept. So, I mean, here I'm not just exorcising I'm exorcising that demon, I'm exorcising him from the devil, and he's just gonna be now behaving normally. No, it's not a question only of behaving.
And you're exercising the consequences and the feedback loops down the timeline.
Yes. The consequences that can be really negative are health consequences that reflect on your body. That's why there is so much an increase in all these things that we have we have been fighting in the last few years. A growing number of people dying of cancer and of other sicknesses, which are really related also to the psychology of a person, not only to his physical, what I eat or what I don't eat. These people who have not smoked one cigarette in their life end up with the cancer in their throat.
Yeah.
So maybe they've been talking too much bullshit.
Yeah, go on.
I hope that today's episode made people understand that we can all take control of our lives. We at times we have to do it. You remember when a few months ago I came to England and we talked together about all this, and I was there, already fearing the consequence of what might have happened after they will condemn me. And I already knew that they will condemn me even a few months back, because I knew that it was all set up,
Yeah.
But I didn't stand a chance, even if, of course, I fought legally. I even did a GoFundMe, and that helped me briefly with my legal expenses. And I tried to fight the enemy. But when you see that it's impossible, then you have to take in your hands your life and make certain decisions. That's why for 3 months I had to, in the last 2 or 3 months before I left Italy, I started to pack every single thing I have. I had to leave all my books, my records. I have thousands of books. I have thousands of records. I had to leave everything behind. We have to understand at one point that we have to leave all these materialistic things, because freedom is the best thing in our lives. Freedom, that Statue of Liberty that we see at the entrance there in New York, is really something important for us. And when I went there in 1982, and I was actually able, 12-year-old, climb on those ladder inside the Statue of Liberty, get into this, on top of it. That is the feel that I like of this country, the United States. Feel of liberty, that I can say what I think.
Well
it's
done.
Not something that is happening anymore in Europe, I'm afraid. And England is on a very bad path.
Oh, yeah.
And of the UK, because unfortunately they're favoring Muslims over Christians, and they are making out of politically correctness the new dogma that you can have people just nowadays, even in England, I heard ringing at your doorbell. Sorry, sir, what kind of post have you done yesterday on Facebook?
Yeah.
Well,
It's getting ridiculous.
They can't come to your door still for a post on Facebook.
Yeah, nice. Hey, well, I might see you there. I might be coming too. We'll see. Well, look,
all freedom fighters, I think, in the end, will be forced to come to the US, just like they were forced 100 years ago when the situation went out of control in Europe.
Right.
It's history repeating.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
what happened 100 years ago is going to re-happen now, because Europe is losing freedom, and at one point, when they will lose all their freedom, and there will be civil unrest rampant all over Europe, and everything will be chaotic, then something will be like, all these leaders, United States, come and help us,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Leo, I'm really glad you're a great escapologist, and you're like Harry Houdini. You slipped away before they could put the guillotine on you. And I'll leave everyone with this. I'd like to see Leo as a Trump advisor soon. Yeah. So President Trump, if you're listening to this, or Alex Jones, if you can get hold of Donald Trump, here's your man. This guy. He can advise Trump about the demonic forces around him. He can go into the you can go into the White House and exorcise the place of all demonic energy, and I'll be there shouting hooray, So listen, I gotta go. We've gotta go. This is crazy. leozagami.com. Go there, buy his book, support him, support me, buy my book, The Emergency Transformation of Human Beings. You'll see it on my website. Leo, thanks for being you. You're a great guy. I really appreciate you being on the planet with me now.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you always for your support, and thank you for your interesting chats and interviews that are always, pushing me to tell things that maybe to other interviews I never say. You've always managed to get the most out of it, so thank you so much, because it's like going to a psychoanalytic session.
Brilliant.
I'm not lying on the bed, but it's okay.
Hey, listen, I'm the one that needs to lie on the bed. I'll tell you what, Leo. Thanks very much, mate. I really, really love your work and love you very much. And
Please
go on.
support this whole endeavor of mine of coming here to the US by coming to these events. They're like the one on the 22nd in Sacramento or the one on the 30th in Kingman, and buy my books, especially Volume 5 and Volume 6.66, which have been published by Cursum Perficio. Because at least with this money, I will be able to guarantee myself a legal status here in the US. Because I tell you, Jason, it's an expensive thing that I'm doing now. I mean, it's not easy to do it the legal way. I'm gonna have to really take out a lot of money out of my pockets. So
you'll get support. You'll get support, Leo. You will. Good people always do. If you're working for the light and you're working for the right side, you'll get support. You'll be helped.
The worst that can happen, I'm gonna go to Mexico and come back in by climbing across the thing and just claim
Absolutely.
Mexico.
Well done, Leo. Thanks, Leo. All the best, mate.
All the best.
You take care. Thank you, Leo Zagami. Thank you, everybody, for watching. That was a long 2-hour stint. Woo, we really went for it there. So, thanks everyone for supporting the show. Support me, support Leo, and most of all, support yourselves and be kind to yourself. And like we were talking with Leo, get back to your spiritual self. We are all dying of spiritual starvation. We're not in the woods anymore. We're not in. We're not swimming in anymore. We're not contacting each other anymore. Our wives and our family are becoming. Get back to yourself. Come home to yourself, and that's what this system's showing us now. I agree with Leo. It's like the end times. It's forcing us to come home. There's nowhere else to go. When you've been outside yourself, searching and sniffing around for the next thing and the next little treat or the next car or the next way of making money, you feel empty. There's only one more thing that it makes you feel whole, and that's coming home. I won't call it God. Coming home to your spiritual connection, and it's there. All you've got to do, Leo, is lie on the bed. If I go upstairs in the afternoon and just lie on the bed and say, "Thank you, help me," and I'll tell you what, you feel it, yeah.
And it's not about one political leader on one side of the world, the other side of the world that is going to help you, but it's going to be yourself helping yourself.
Right.
When you really decide to take the situation in your hands.
Yeah.
And of course, what we said earlier, people think, okay, Putin is the solution, or maybe Trump is the solution, or anybody is the solution. But in reality, it's you who have to first of all change things around you. And say, okay, I don't stand with this crap anymore. I don't want to be manipulated by this big game. I want to see who are the players, but then I want to make the right decision for me and my family. That is the next thing you have to do after you understand how this game is working.
Absolutely, Leo. Well bloody said. It's like we keep putting our power into the next politician, pope, priest. Stop it, for God's sake. Come back home, pull your energy back inside, and then see what happens, and we'll change. And then the conductors of the orchestra can do what they want. Let's recalibrate ourselves and come back home and stop giving it to these people who are promising to save us. For God's sake, we're the savers, we're the midwives, we're the solution. Okay, Leo? Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, brother. Thanks, Leo. Thank you, everybody. Bless you all. And I'll see you next time. Oh, Satish Kumar's on the show next week. That's going to be very great. He's the founder of the Schumacher College. I'm going over to film with him. I'll be sat there speaking to a great man. He walked you from India. What a great guy. So we'll be talking about tapping back into that spiritual power again. This is what we got to talk about now. Not out there, in here. And that'll change out there. Bless you all. Thanks for watching.